Title: The Reflection That Wasn't Mine. My name is Emily Carter, and what I'm about to share with you still sends shivers down my spine. It happened 2 years ago when I moved into my first apartment alone. I was excited, filled with the thrill of independence and the charm of my new place, a quaint, slightly outdated studio in an old building downtown. It had creaky floors, vintage windows, and a large antique mirror mounted on the wall opposite my bed. That mirror would become the center of my nightmare. At first, everything seemed normal. I settled in, decorated the place with cozy lights, plants, and personal touches. But a week after moving in, I started noticing odd things. It began with subtle details. My reflection didn't always match my movements perfectly. At first, I shrugged it off, but as the realization crept in, it felt like a small crack forming in the fragile glass of my reality. A cold, uneasy feeling settled deep in my chest, like a whisper of something watching, waiting. Doubt gnawed at me. I questioned my own perception, wondering if I was losing my mind. I'd find myself standing still, testing the mirror repeatedly, desperate to catch it slipping again, hoping it was just my imagination while dreading the moment I'd prove myself right. The apartment felt colder, emptier, like the reflection wasn't just a trick of the light, but something else entirely, lurking just beneath the surface. I'd tilt my head slightly, and for a fraction of a second, the reflection lagged before mimicking me. I blamed my exhaustion from unpacking and adjusting to my new job. But then, it got worse. One evening, after a long day, I was brushing my hair in front of the mirror when I noticed it. My reflection was smiling. I wasn't. Frozen in shock, I stared at the glass, my heart pounding so loudly it drowned out the world. The smile faded slowly, as if realizing I had caught it. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes, and when I looked again, everything seemed normal. I convinced myself it was stress playing tricks on me. But deep down, fear took root. Over the next few days, the incidents escalated. Shadows moved in the mirror when nothing moved in my apartment. Sometimes, I saw glimpses of someone standing just behind me, a figure that vanished the moment I turned around. Objects would subtly shift positions when reflected, though untouched in reality. Sleep became elusive, and I started avoiding the mirror altogether, draping it with a blanket at night. Then came the night I couldn't ignore it anymore. I woke up around 3 a.m., drenched in sweat, with an overwhelming sense of being watched. The blanket covering the mirror had fallen. Through the faint glow of streetlights outside, I saw it clearly. My reflection was sitting up in bed, staring directly at me, but I was lying down. Paralyzed by fear, I couldn't move. My chest tightened as if an invisible hand was pressing down, stealing the very breath from my lungs. My skin prickled with cold sweat, and I could hear the frantic pounding of my heart, each beat echoing like a drum inside my skull. My eyes locked with the reflection's hollow gaze, an overwhelming sense of dread creeping up my spine like icy fingers. My mind screamed at me to run, to look away, but my body refused to obey. Trapped in the suffocating grip of sheer terror, the room felt smaller, the air heavier, as if reality itself had shifted around me, leaving me face to face with something that should not exist. The reflection slowly tilted its head, its eyes dark and hollow, a twisted grin spreading unnaturally wide across its face. It lifted a hand and waved at me, fingers bending at odd, unnatural angles. My breath caught in my throat. Summoning every ounce of courage, I lunged out of bed, grabbing the blanket and throwing it over the mirror. The instant it was covered, the oppressive weight in the room lifted slightly. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat in the corner of the room with my back pressed against the cold wall, the faint glow from a single lamp casting long, flickering shadows. Every creak of the old floorboards felt like footsteps creeping closer. My eyes stayed locked on the blanket-covered mirror, half expecting it to move or for something to crawl out from beneath the fabric. The air felt thick, heavy with an invisible presence, and I kept hearing faint, almost imperceptible whispers like soft breaths against my eartho. I was completely alone. I gripped a kitchen knife, my knuckles white, as if it could protect me from something that wasn't bound by the rules of the physical world. The hours stretched on endlessly until the first light of dawn bled through the window, but the fear never faded. The next morning, I decided I had to get rid of the mirror. I tried to take it down, but it wouldn't budge. It felt as if it was fused to the wall, more permanent than anything else in the apartment. Desperate, I called the landlord, claiming it was damaged and needed to be removed. He came over that afternoon, looked puzzled and said, "That mirror? It's been here since before I bought the place. Nobody's ever had an issue with it." When he tried to remove it, his expression changed. "That's strange," he muttered, struggling with all his strength. "It's like it's part of the wall." I didn't tell him about what I saw. He left, promising to come back with tools, but he never did. That night, I heard whispers coming from behind the mirror. Soft, unintelligible at first, but gradually clearer. It was my voice, but I wasn't speaking. The reflection began appearing even when I wasn't looking directly into the mirror. I'd see it in the corner of my eyes, moving when I was still, watching me with that crooked smile. Sometimes, faint fingerprints appeared on the glass from the inside, growing clearer with each passing day. My breaking point came when I found a note on my nightstand one morning. It was in my handwriting, but I hadn't written it. "Let me out." I left the apartment that day and never went back. Sometimes, when I pass reflective surfaces, I catch glimpses that don't match what I'm doing. In shop windows, I've seen my reflection pause while I kept walking, its head slowly turning to follow me with a grin I wasn't wearing. In bathroom mirrors, I've caught fleeting images of myself blinking when my eyes were wide open. Once, while riding in a bus, I glanced at the glass beside me and saw my reflection staring back. But its lips moved, whispering words I couldn't hear while I remained silent. Each glimpse leaves a hollow ache in my chest, a silent question gnawing at the edges of my sanity. What if the reflection is no longer mine? A faint smile when I'm not smiling, a shadow that shouldn't be there. And once, in a crowded cafe, I saw my reflection wave at me from the window while I was holding my hands still. I don't know what it was, but I'm terrified it followed me. Just last week, I found a faint, dusty handprint on the inside of my bedroom mirror, too small to be mine, and smudged in a way that looked like it had been pressed from the other side. I wiped it away, but the next morning, it was back, clearer than before. Now, I leave the lights on at night, but sometimes I still catch that crooked smile lurking just beyond the glass.